Could digital censorship sway the 2020 election? Welcome to Deep Dive. I'm James Freeman of the Wall Street Journal. Joining us today to discuss, Brandon Straka is founder of the Walkaway campaign, which encourages and supports those on the left to walk away from what they call the divisive tenets endorsed and mandated by the Democratic Party of today. Brandon, you have had a few run-ins with different social media giants. At times, I think your accounts have been turned off. Some say these were mistakes. You see it as a campaign against people with conservative views.
I definitely see it as a campaign against people with conservative views. And I think what's really interesting about the experiences that happened to me was I was actually banned twice on Facebook, once as a liberal and once as a conservative. But even when I was banned as a liberal, it was for going against even more progressive policies than what fit my personal belief system. Mm-hmm. They were pushing for this, that the gay community should be referred to as the queer community. And when I stepped up as a gay man and said, listen, I object to that, I find that term very offensive, I was banned for hate speech as a gay man who didn't want to be called queer.
This was for being offended by a term that is demanded by people who are offended by other terms.
Correct.
Can be hard to keep track, but okay.
Very hard to keep track. And the second time was after I walked away from the Democratic Party, started the Walkaway campaign. We were about to have the Walkaway March on Washington last fall. This was a very crucial time for us. We needed social media to be able to fundraise, to be able to raise awareness for our event. And it was about exactly 30 days before our event. I used the term Infowars in a post. And Facebook sent me a message saying, you are banned for 30 days for using the term Infowars on our site. Now, I was fortunate in that I have a large following. I'm a public figure in the news. And so when I tweeted about that, it became a story, and Facebook was forced to walk it back.
Okay, now the Infowars is, I think, what most people would consider an extreme site. And there's an argument. I guess I'm curious, do you think if these tech giants are transparent, if they say, look, we're going to ban extremes on both ends of the political spectrum, and here's the list of stuff, or here's the criteria, are you fine with that? Or is it the manner in which they're enforcing this, or is it the fact that they're setting standards?
I would say it's more of the latter. I mean, it's my personal belief system is that if you're not calling for violence, and if you're not, trying to hurt anyone or organize some sort of crime or something like that, we're all grown adults here, and I think that people should have the right to decide for themselves what sources of information they want to read and which sources they don't. And let's not pretend like it's only people on the right who can be prone at times to conspiracy theories or fake news, as it were.
Right.
I mean, Donald Trump did not mock a reporter's disability, but if they're more than happy to perpetuate that story over and over and over again and say that that's the truth and that's what really happened. So, I mean, the fake news is happening more on one side than the other, but it's our side only that they care about.
Okay, to be clear, you are able to use social media in the main. I understand you got turned off at a point that was not helpful to you at all, given you were trying to do an event, but I see you're on Twitter. You are generally able to get your message out.
I am, and I have to be honest with you and say that because I am the leader of this movement, and it's crucial that I have social media to be able to grow this movement and continue this movement, I watch what I say. There are many times where I'm about to push the send button on a tweet or a post, and I say, do I want to lose my movement over this? And I make the decision not to do that. And none of my opinions are particularly controversial, but based off of even what happened to me as a liberal when I objected to the word queer, and they banned me for hate speech, I'm very aware that the lines are incredibly sensitive, and I'm not willing to lose everything. So I watch what I say oftentimes.
Brandon, just as we sort of frame the issue here, you could argue, look, there are a lot of companies that are biased. You don't necessarily expect a fair shake from the New York Times, among other media outlets. For all its flaws, do you get a better deal from Silicon Valley media companies than from what we might call the traditional media?
No. If that's the question, I would say the answer is no. But I will openly admit that this problem, I think, puts conservatives in a pickle, because we are, I think, the group that is talking about less government regulation. We don't really believe in that, and we don't want to try to police the free markets in any way, shape, or form. So it presents a conundrum, I think, for us, because there is something, I think, inherently unfair about the way this is happening, especially when we talk about things like it affecting people's livelihoods and the outcomes of elections. I mean, we don't just use social media anymore to show pictures of our vacations. People build careers and businesses and their livelihoods, and as we know, it directly affects politics. I mean, a study, I think, was shown that said about 86% of the media that Facebook put forward during the 2016 campaign was all liberally oriented, from the New York Times, the Washington Post. People weren't seeing conservative stories during that time of the election. And even if I were to give you just a personal real world example, I started the walkaway campaign, but the liberal media created stories to combat this, saying it was a Russian propaganda campaign, it's Russian bots, it was created by Vladimir Putin. To this day, if you Google #walkaway, the majority of the first few pages that you will see are stories about how this is a fake Russian-driven propaganda campaign. You have to actually
just to confirm, you are not a Russian bot.
I am not a Russian bot, never have been.
Google, Facebook, etc. It's hard to think that they would even exist if they were held liable for all the comments that users put on these sites or material that their search engine may serve up. So, Brandon, the question now, though, is it unfair that they're not being treated as simple publishers when they are making such decisions over the content that's presented?
No, I don't necessarily feel like it's unfair. But what I think what's unfair is that a handful of Silicon Valley billionaires are making decisions on behalf of all of us of what is acceptable and appropriate content, what words we can use, what words we can't use. And literally, sometimes it does come down to a matter of using a word that they have deemed unacceptable. No one else, only they have deemed unacceptable, and you're out. And I think, again, with something as important as this medium that we use to gather information, to create, jobs and whatnot, that if we're forced to accept what a handful of people are deeming, acceptable and appropriate, that's a very serious problem.
Okay.
To go to another platform, well, that's not where the party is. So unless everybody else comes along, and even Apple as well. I thought Samsung was supposed to bring them down. I don't see how it happens.
Well, that's a great point, but I feel like, too, something that needs to be said that I think a lot of people don't consider is, you're absolutely right, the party's in one place, but even if conservatives created an alternative platform, there's also the issue of hosting the platform, and I think a lot of people don't understand these hosting companies have the same ability to remove your competitive social media platform if they feel like there's content on your social media platform that they find unacceptable.
Yes, and we have real-world examples of that.
Brandon will give you the last word. I don't know if you're planning a new walkaway movement from Silicon Valley or maybe from particular companies, but I'm wondering what you see as the solution here.
Interesting you should ask me this. So with Walkaway Campaign, we actually started on Facebook. It began, as just a social media movement with people coming on, joining our group, making testimonials, telling their stories about why they're walking away. Well, our group was growing and growing and growing, and boom, one day, 15,000 members were removed from my group in one day. And then since then, our growth has just absolutely plateaued. And we have a number of people who hate social media for this very reason. So what we've done with Walkaway Campaign, we're actually about to roll out our new website, walkawaycampaign.com. Not yet, but it'll be coming within a month or two. And we've basically created all of the same functionality as Facebook, but it's available at walkawaycampaign.com. Now, we're not looking to replace social media. This is for walkaway only, but people can come to our group. They can create posts, tag each other, post videos, send each other private messages. We've just created our own autonomous social media experience for a Walkaway Campaign so that we can't be controlled by social media tech giants.
Interesting. All right. Thanks, guys. Appreciate the discussion today. And thanks to all of you. Please come back for the next deep dive on Fox Nation. Thanks.